So the first thing I want to do is a little demo on blocking out some character heads. It's something that I've not done in quite a while, and I get a lot of questions about. And who doesn't want to sculpt heads, faces? You know, it's like the most popular and fun thing to do. So I'll show you guys some examples of what I'm thinking about first, what I like to do. And I'll talk about some of the differences between what I'm going to show you and what I actually do in practice, because when I'm actually sculpting, I kind of like automate a lot of this stuff. I do it a lot faster than you would probably, than what I'm probably going to describe here. I'm going to like break it down into steps. So we'll like kind of go over that together. For those that are unfamiliar or maybe new around here, I have a little known tool that I created about a year ago called ModMesh. ModMesh is an awesome tool that gives you a bunch of different pieces that you can combine, and I'm just gonna pick some here at random. Oh, I had a cool one there. Where'd it go? I'll just do this one. All right, so ModMesh is a tool where you can combine all these different parts to create some different heads, and let's kind of scroll through here, find a random one. I kind of like the small one, the gravy. It's small, but it works. All right. I'll pick a neck out for this guy. And I want to show you this first. We'll do that one. Oh, no, wait, that's gravy again. Let's do a different one. Let's do this long one. The priest neck. Let's pick out some ears. Oh, you know what? I kind of like that first one. Let's do that. And then finally a quick nose here. These, I might have to move around a little. I kind of like that one. Let's do that. The macho. I'll just slide that out ever so slightly. Boom, done, cool. So like I said, this is my tool. It's called ModMesh. I released this like a year ago, and you can use it to quickly mock up a ton of different heads. It's been a while since I've demoed it, so one, I wanted to show it off here at the start of the stream, and two, this is how we are going to kind of mentally break down this process of how I like to, or what I like to think about when I'm blocking out heads. Because if you guys have watched a lot of my videos, you know that I'm not sitting here subtooling out, splitting apart every single piece, just because that takes a lot longer. You get a lot more control, but it's slower, and I'm typically working a lot faster and kind of, like I said, kind of automating a lot of this stuff. This tool you can get on my Gumroad, or modmesh.xyz is the URL if you're interested in it and want to check it out. But what I'm going to do now is show you how we can create like a custom one of these from scratch, or how I would go about that. So what I need from you guys in chat is a suggestion of a character that we can sculpt. We're going to stick with Miles Morales. I think that's a great suggestion. We're going to break this down into 5 steps. We're going to start with the 2 main shapes of the face. Then we're going to do neck, ears, and nose. This is called a blockout. The purpose of a blockout is to capture the main forms of whatever you're sculpting. Character, head, body, tree, rock, plant, creature, whatever. Sky's the limit. Blockout means primary forms, essentially, and that's what we're going to do here. So I start pretty much all my characters the same way here, and that's with a sphere. And I do that just because it's like the basic shape, roughly the basic shape of a skull. And let's get into it. So I'm going to start off with one sphere. I'm going to trim the sides of the sphere. This is essentially, and I'll turn on perspective here while I do this for a moment. This is essentially the shape of the skull, roughly. You know, it's a sphere with some flat planes on the side, and you can kind of see that happening here with this character, with Miles. Then what we're gonna do is we're gonna take that bottom sphere, and we're just gonna slide it down, and we're gonna start shaping this into the form of his jaw. So, if you guys have seen me do this on my channel, I'll typically do this with one shape. I'm doing it with 2 here. We're gonna do like 5 separate pieces and split things up, but you know, I'll explain some of the differences as I go. So for the jaw, I like to think of the head as two separate parts. There's the top part of the head, which is the skull, the sphere, and then there's the bottom slash front portion, which is the face. So you can kind of chop these up into a sphere and a wedge. So that's kind of what I've done here. I'm just gonna use really basic tools here to like trim out shapes. And I'm doing that really quickly with the transpose line set to move. You can just tap and trim stuff out like that. There's a lot of different ways you can do that. That's just a quick way. I'm gonna be using simple tools like the move brush here as we continue forward. I'm just gonna start pushing things around. So the first thing I like to capture here after I start creating this piece is the jawline. And I'll just do that with a pinch brush, one of my custom brushes. You don't need custom brushes to do this. You can do this with all the basic stuff, but if you are interested in grabbing my brushes, there should be a link below to my Gumroad where you can grab those. So there is our basic jaw. So if we look over here at Miles, let's take a look at a couple different shapes, right? So we have this area right here. This is where the eyes are gonna live. It is this separative section between the top and bottom section of the head. So what does that mean? That means that this area here is going to be our eye cavity. So what we're gonna do is I'm just gonna start pinching this top area. This is his upper brow here. And I'm looking at his upper brow and I'm just getting like a basic idea of that. Really, really simple. And then I'm looking at this shape and I'm just following it around. And it looks like it goes all the way down here, roughly to his nose. And if I look over here at the 3/4, it's even easier to see. It just wraps around his brow, wraps around the side, and wraps down all the way around there. So it's like this big, round cavity shape, like this. So that's kind of what we're looking at. It's a really simple, basic shape. Okay? Now let's start looking at that a little more closely. You know, it comes out and around here, and then it kind of goes down, right? Take a look at this. You can like see this shape right here. So this is telling us that this here is the side of his face. And this little highlight, that's kind of where it's starting to change direction. So let's put another line right there, just another quick little pinch, you know? Just one, you know, if I can turn off my sim, I knew that was gonna happen, a little duplication. So we got 1 and 2. Front side of the plane, front portion of the face, side portion of the face, okay? So that's what we're looking for at this time, front and side. So let's start breaking this down more. Again, accuracy not our goal, we're just kind of breaking down this process. It narrows as it comes down, so we're narrowing into the chin, just like that. So let's make it more narrow. So it goes from wide to narrow. And all we have to do is observe this in our reference. We just have to take the time to look closely, make an observation, attempt to make that form, and then observe again and repeat. So that's kind of what we're looking at. So like I said, I'm going to break this down pretty slow here. We'll just continue going. Let's take a look at that top piece and maybe make it a little wider. I might have made it a little too narrow. I'm actually noticing that it goes this way a little, you know, it comes out. So I can change that angle slightly. I can play with that. Never be afraid to go back and keep making changes. Something roughly like that. All right, so now we're gonna add on another piece. We're gonna add on the neck. And for that, I'm just gonna use a cylinder. So I'll click on append and grab myself a quick cylinder. Slide that down. Do a quick scale. Make it a little longer. And slide it up into the head. So let's just observe again. I can see over here where the neck is. He's got a pretty narrow neck, you know? Maybe around there. And I'll angle that back a little. The neck isn't like perfectly straight. Typically feels pretty awkward if you do something like that. So now we can just play with the proportions a little here. I'm not too worried about having it perfect, but I'll spend, you know, a minute here just tweaking. Just using my move brush. Also, if you're working, you know, you're sculpting in ZBrush or Blender or whatever, you can always just use some kind of auto tool to remesh your geometry. We have Dynamesh in ZBrush, and that just gets rid of all your pinches. It gives it a quick redistribution of polys. You can get something cleaner if you want with ZRemesher. It doesn't really matter. I'm not someone that cares a ton about tools. Tools are just like an end way to get to your goal. But, you know, obviously you have to be knowledgeable in the software. I've been using ZBrush for a very long time, and I tend to think less about tools and try to think more about form. That's kind of where you want to be in terms of sculpting. All right, I'm just playing around here. A couple more changes, making it narrower up top here toward the front. Notice I got like this really, you know, sharp edge right here. It's not super accurate. So I'll just go over that, trim it out. And we'll come, you know, we'll be jumping around a lot. We'll be playing with some different things. All right, let's take a look at that 3/4 angle. This is probably sticking out a little too far on the bottom, and probably not sticking out far enough for the top. So let's play with that. My light's being a little funky too. Might have to adjust that. All right. Cool. Let's add on some ears. Ears are super easy. So we'll just append another sphere. And I won't start with symmetry here. I'm just gonna start with one sphere and then I'll duplicate it after the fact. Yes, the Spider-Verse was incredible, I agree. Yeah, the pinch brush is a custom one. Yeah, you can grab it from my brushes over on my Gumroad. Quad remesher, use whatever you can for remeshing. You know, I tend to care less about the technical stuff because as technology evolves, you can worry more and more about the artistic side of things and less about the technical. You can always learn the technical stuff, but and those are always going to change as well. But like with the artistic stuff, the fundamentals will always be the same, which is what's really good about learning that kind of stuff. All right, ear. Got distracted. You guys are distracting me talking about this great movie. Ugh. All right, so let's take a look at the ear. It needs to maybe be like a little higher, right? The ear is roughly in line with the eye. Depending on the tilt and angle of the head, that can be confusing, and depending on the person, it's always going to be different, right? No two people are the same, unless you're twins. In that case, I guess you are like identical. All right, basic shape of the ear. Something like that. Okay, once we have that in place, all we have to do is mirror it to the other side. Mirror and weld. Awesome. All right. You'll notice like the big, awkward no man's land, gap here. This T is killing me. This is really easy to fix after we blend the parts together. So if you have these awkward kind of gap areas, don't worry about it too much. Don't spend like a ton of time cleaning that kind of stuff up. All right, so there's the ears, and all that's left is the nose. He's got a pretty cool nose, nice and wide at the bottom, skinny at the top. We love taper when we're talking about appeal. So let's append another sphere, our good friend the sphere. He's gonna be helping us out a lot here. All right, so let's scale down. And I have done, is that not symmetrical? No, I think we're good. Look, threw me off for a second. So I have done, I don't even remember what I was going to say. It doesn't matter. It wasn't important. Face needs to go back in a little. There we go. I have made a lot of noses, and they're all, the basic process is pretty much the same. I have a video on my channel showing like a quick step-by-step guide. What I'm going to do here is going to be a super simplified version. So let's see. Gonna put this middle sphere for the ball of the nose, the tip of the nose. That might be a little too big. I don't really care actually. Like I said, the proportions aren't that important. And then I'm just gonna duplicate and do like 2 of these, kind of like this. And then I'll just mirror that to the other side. And then just repurpose this geometry, pull it up in the middle. Something like that. So it gets narrow toward the middle, wide at the bottom, and then wide again. See how stretched that's getting? Just Dynamesh it. Boom, fixed. Alright, so that's the basic process for a nose. Need some more tweaking to get our proportions right, but I think you guys get the basic process. Alright, we'll scale down the wings, or ala, of the nose. And that feels pretty good. And I'll finish this up with like 1 or 2 more tweaks. And we can combine these different parts as well. Doesn't have to be super detailed. I'll just merge it all, remesh. So the point here with a blockout is not to work on details. You just want to focus on these big shapes. Just capture the big shapes. It's not really that everything comes easier from spheres. It's just, I mean, you could start with a cube. You could start with a prism. It doesn't matter. Essentially what you're doing here is it's less about the focus on the sphere and more about the focus on super basic primary forms. So that's kind of our area of focus here. Let's make this like way bigger. Am I wrong, or is this shape like way bigger? And I don't want to get stuck here playing with details on this, right? I was just talking about how that is not the objective. So something like that. So these are the 5 parts that you need. I got a little messy there. These are the 5 parts you need to block out a head. It is really this simple. You know, this is some really basic shapes for Miles. I could sit here and like start to line things up a lot more. And, you know, I started this by saying it's not, you know, we're not trying to focus on proportions. But if we wanted to, if I was a stickler for that kind of thing, which I might be, if you've seen my sculpts before, then we could sit here and fiddle with it, you know? Get it to a really nice clean spot. I think you guys get the general idea there on what we're going for. Alright, let me remesh, clean those up, and then I'll show you what you can do in terms of like next steps from here. Awesome. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Easy peasy, Miles squeezy. All right, merge visible. I'm just gonna merge this into one piece. So if you are working on a character and you get to this stage and you're like, all right, so I watched that Follygon video, I blocked out my Miles Morales character head. Now what do I do? Like, how do I continue forward with this? Well, what you do is you take your 5 pieces, you combine them all like I just did there. You can either merge them, Dynamesh them, whatever. I like to use Dynamesh, so I'll just grab them all and I'll just do like a 200 or so, which is probably fine for this resolution. And I'll Dynamesh them all, just like this, and start smoothing them all together. And being careful not to like over smooth, over blend, anything like that. Especially in this area. I told you guys earlier, I pointed this out. This area, we're just gonna go back over top and start to fill that in. There's some like other anatomy here, right? Everybody's favorite neck muscle, the sternocleidomastoid, as well as some, you know, fat under the skin, other stuff connecting here, like your, wow, your triceps, trapezius, dear Lord, triceps. Your trapezius, you got a bunch of neck stuff going on here in the front. So that would be like next steps in terms of moving forward. Your freaking neck triceps, gee, man. Oh boy, I need to grab a coffee. So there you go. That's kind of the basic process from going from, you know, individual pieces, starting to block out those main shapes, and then going in and starting to combine and keep pushing forward. Obviously, things are really rough at this stage. You got all these sharp edges, so you got to go through. You got to start making things feel more organic. If you have any like baked-in expression, you got to get rid of that. We got to start, sculpting some eyes on this character, which, we could take some time to do, but I don't want to, spend the rest of our time here continuing to push forward on that. So it's going to take a really long time. So there's the basic process. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. And I will now open the discussion for questions. And if we don't have any, we'll move on to another demo, which will be fun too.